Coming up, Debbie's going to join me. We're going to do our Friday roundup, and I thought we'd focus on the issue of immigration, examining a whole series of questions. First of all, are illegals immigrants? Are we really a nation of immigrants? When did America abandon the idea of the melting pot? What are the Democrats' motives for promoting illegal immigration? How many illegals can we or should we deport? What is the real problem with our legal immigration policy? How can it be fixed? Are immigration restrictions a violation of the Christian principle to love thy neighbor? So this is a chance to join the guy from India, me, and the gal from Venezuela, Debbie, to make the case for an America First immigration policy. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or X, listening on Apple or Google or Spotify, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe or the follow button. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
Debbie and I are all ready for our Friday roundup, and we want to focus this episode on the issue of immigration, both legal and illegal immigration, in all the various dimensions of these problems. But I thought I'd cover a couple of other things before we jump into our main topic for this Friday. It's been a heck of a week with regard to Doge and Elon Musk. And you made the point to me just in conversation that this is the issue that has really gotten the Democrats riled up. They've been riled up like we haven't seen them riled up for a while. And usually with Democrats, when that happens, it's a clue to something very important that they have at stake.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to liken this to when Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Right.
They got really riled up then. I mean, and they went all out. I mean, it was
the FACE
all
Act,
out. Oh, yeah.
The assault on pro-lifers.
Oh, absolutely.
Evelyn Beatty Williams
Yep.
ends up in prison.
Yep.
So
Yep.
because abortion is one of it's probably their main sacrament,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that is critical to their identity.
Yep.
What is it about their identity now
Mm-hmm.
that is being jeopardized, do you think?
Well, I think, to be honest, there are a lot of crooks in the kitchen. Not cooks in the kitchen.
Crooks.
Crooks in the kitchen. And by that, I mean that this has, you kind of alluded to this yesterday when you were talking about this is the Democrats' MO. They've been doing this for so long. Corruption is how they function. And so the fact that their corruption is being exposed, I think they're having a you know what?
Well, you know what I think it is? Normally, if somebody is a crook, let's say I'm a pickpocket. I know I'm a pickpocket, right? And I have to somehow rationalize that, like I'm pickpocketing because my kids are hungry. But it's very difficult for me to pose as a good guy. Just like you're in the mafia. You get to be in the mafia. Maybe you get the benefits of being in the mafia. But one benefit you don't get is to claim you're Mother Teresa. It would be a bit much for Don Corleone to act like he's Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, he never did.
Mm-hmm.
But with these guys, they want it all.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be crooks. They want to be emptying your pocket, and they want you to thank them.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to believe, and they even have a self-image where maybe over the years they have convinced themselves that they are in it to do good, even though they're in it to do well for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And the nerve of them to actually think that they're trying to make you believe that fixing corruption and putting an end to all of these, subsidies and pocketing,
NGOs where the money circles back to you.
That somehow that is immoral. To take that away from them is somehow immoral, and you should be outraged.
Well, they're equating an attack on government and, in fact, on the abuses of government with an attack on democracy.
Right, as
right?
always.
Even though we've had a democracy, a constitutional democracy with a very small government.
Yeah.
And there's no reason. In fact, one would think that if you have a government under constitutional democracy, it would be a government that would be open to constant scrutiny. I mean, as it is, government doesn't have the bottom line, the profit motive of corporations. So a corporation knows if it's not doing well. Why? Because it's going out of business. Its stock is plummeting.
Yeah, well, we're going out of business too.
We are, but there seems to be no valid metric. I mean, think of it. If you didn't think you were going out of business when your debt level is $10 trillion, and then it goes to 15 and to 20, and now it's at 36, and at this rate, it'll soon be 50. I mean, the country officially, or at least governmentally, is bankrupt. And yet it's going around posing, we're the greatest power in the world. Yes, we will be sending money to Ukraine. Yes, we'll be doing this. Yes, we'll be doing that. We're patrolling the sea waters of the world.
Yeah. I mean, and
there's something wrong here with this picture.
There really is. You made the analogy the other day when we were talking about this, about likening it to your neighbor, to us helping our neighbors out of debt when we ourselves are in debt. Not for real. We're not in debt. But if we were, let's say we had like a $30,000 or $40,000 credit card debt bill.
And your neighbor comes along and says, I lost my job, or I need to put my mom in home care. You know, can you lend me money or can you give me money? The first question we would ask is, do we have it?
Right.
Right? Because if we don't have it...
Yeah, but the Democrats don't ask that question. That's the problem.
Not at all. They don't ask that question. You know why? Because it's not their money.
Yeah, that's right.
So their point is, we have an unlimited license. This is how they see it, to spend other people's money, ideally on ourselves. Their favorite charity is themselves. And so all their so-called philanthropic work somehow works its way back to them. This is in a way, I'm not even sure if Elon Musk realized how bad it was. I mean, in some ways, this is the Twitter model, right? He goes into Twitter and he realized, I don't need 80% of these people. They don't do anything. They watch TV all day. They don't even show up, some of them. And we're actually catering food for them. So he liquidates them and Twitter functions fine. I think the Democrats are terrified that if we do that to the government, the result will be the same.
Yeah. No, it'll be better.
Better.
Leaner, better. And it'll be more accountable to the taxpayer. So, I think in all actuality, people should take a look at the Democratic Party and go, what exactly have they done?
And not only what have they done, but what are they? They are something very close to a criminal enterprise.
They are. And not only that, but they're like the owners of a plantation that are like, oh my gosh, no, slavery's over. What? No.
I mean, you're right. The plantation was a criminal enterprise. It was a legal criminal enterprise in that time.
But isn't that how they revolted?
That is how they revolted. And talking about freakouts, they never had a freakout. Their biggest freakout was on freeing the slaves.
That's right. That's right.
And now they, this is the thesis of Death of a Nation. They're trying to turn all of America into a plantation.
That's right.
The government, of course, is the big house. Because on a private plantation, you have a big house. And everything operates out of there. All the account books are over there. But now government is the big house. And Doge says, let me take a look at your books. And they're like, no, right? They're using these judges. And of course, once again, they're masquerading. They're like, we've got to subscribe to the rule of law. And these judges are there. But you notice what they do is these judges are all in it with the Democrats. They give money to the Democratic Party. This guy in Rhode Island has given $800,000 to the Democrats. That's how he got his judicial appointment. So he's part of the scam, right? He bought his own office, so to speak. And maybe legal, but it is corrupt.
Has to defend it.
So he's defending the system.
What I just thought about, the other day on the podcast, you said that this level of corruption, it's basically like just taking out Rhode Island, like fixing Rhode Island, and the rest of the country is still, up for grabs. I'm afraid that they're going to find out that there's a lot of NGOs that have actually been used to cheat on elections. We know it, right? And so when that is going to be exposed, just wait. You think this is bad? You wait until that jig is up.
I mean, let's flash back to 2000 Mules. Did we or did we not talk about nonprofit
Oh,
organizations?
and you know what happened when we tried?
No, exactly.
Yeah,
This was
no.
a classic example of, I mean, we felt the effects of the freak out.
Yeah.
Legal threats. I mean,
Mhm.
it made us very aware that not only were Democrats very reluctant to look into this. Remember, the thesis of 2000 Mules was always, listen, go talk to the mules. There might be a plausible explanation.
Mhm.
They didn't want to do it
Mhm.
because they knew, it's almost like with Doge, they knew what
That's
would
right.
happen. And second of all, Republicans were scared of it. And now
Right.
we have to admit that when it comes to government corruption, Republicans may not be the party of corruption the way the Democrats
But we
are.
look the other way.
Look the other way.
Yeah.
And there are Republicans who benefit from the swamp.
Yeah.
I sometimes say that they have the not so good drinking spot at the swamp, but they're still at the swamp.
Mhm.
And so they too have something to lose.
Yeah.
So some of these people, I think, are resisting Trump in kind of passive aggressive ways.
Yeah.
They can't be too overt about it.
Yeah.
But coming back to these judges, you know, the idea that a local judge in New York or Rhode Island, who's put up to it by a Democratic operative, that he can issue a nationwide injunction and stop programs that have national impact is outrageous. I think in some ways, I think what's going to happen here, and this may actually turn out for the good, believe it or not, is we fight them, we appeal, we take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court comes out and says, listen, if you're a local judge in Rhode Island, you can stop something happening in Rhode Island. That's it. You do not have the power. You don't have veto power over the
Yeah.
President of the United
But
States.
they think because it's federal that they do.
No,
Because he's
but
a federal judge.
But think about it. The president has all these powers, and he
Yeah.
has a limited time to carry them out. If a judge can say arbitrarily, no, now guess what? Let's start the appeal process. It's going to take months before the appellate court.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is they think that they can because they're federal judges, not state judges, not local judges, right? So the Democrats think, well, it's a federal judge. Surely he can stop a federal, executive order.
Right.
That's
but when
why.
I guess what I'm saying is that when we think about the different branches of government, we think about the legislature, that's the Congress. That's not congressional aides, that's the Congress, right?
Mhm.
Then we think about the presidency, and that's the president. It doesn't refer to some functionary working at OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. When we think of the court, it's the Supreme Court. It's not every lackey who occupies a federal office below him.
they're not
So
part
the
of-
idea that some lackey can tell the president, you can't carry out your normal functions because I say so, is absurd.
Mhm.
I think I've given this example before, but I think, for example, let's say that a judge in the South, a federal judge, but a federal judge in Alabama decided, let's say, that Abraham Lincoln's call for 75,000 volunteers to make up a national militia to stop secession was unconstitutional. What would Lincoln have done? And the answer is obvious. He would have completely ignored it.
Yeah.
He would have laughed it off. He would think that the idea that I've been elected as the president and the head of the executive branch, and some judge in Alabama is telling me that I can't function in my normal duties of office is so preposterous. I would not have been surprised if he would have that judge immediately arrested. And for an absolute derogation of duty. This is why, by the way, I think these judges need to be impeached. And some people are like, how can you say that, Dinesh? Don't you subscribe to the rule of law? And I say, isn't impeachment provided for in the rule of law? Impeachment is part of our laws. There is the power to impeach. So if you say the federal judge has the power to do whatever he wants, I say, let's use the power of impeachment to get rid of the guy.
And you know that impeachment for the Democrats is used with, I don't like this guy, so I'm going to impeach him.
You're thinking of the Trump impeachments,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Not to mention that they've started that again, wanting that again.
Well, they haven't filed. What they've done is they're basically warned. We're beginning the process of looking at impeachment.
But only because they don't like Trump. They don't have anything.
It comes back to the fact that they just don't like Trump, but that something very critical is at stake for them here. And I think it's really their livelihood. Because if you think about the typical bureaucrat or the typical Democrat who runs for office, they're not good at anything else, right? What is Obama good at? Let's think about it. What talents does he have? Well, Exactly. He knows how to capitalize on resentment.
I used to
right?
call him Obama bin lying.
Obama bin lying. Obama bin lying. Good one, honey. I haven't heard that one before. That's a classic.
I did that back in the day.
Obama bin lying. Perfect.
Yeah.
What I like about that incorporates so many insults into one phrase because, first of all, it's slightly Ebonics oriented. Obama bin lying. He been lying. Number two, it's Obama bin Laden.
Yeah, well,
It
that
evokes
I
that.
actually got that idea from, I told you that I think it was 09 or 10 maybe, that one of the newscasters, and I think he was on CNN, I don't think it was Fox, they accidentally called him Obama bin Laden.
Right. And that happened more
And then
recently
it happened more recently,
CNN
so it
had a
reminded me.
chyron,
Yes.
which basically had confused Obama and
did.
Osama.
It did, and so did that reporter. So I laughed, ha ha ha, and then I started calling him Obama bin lying because he lied every time he opened his mouth. It was a lie. So I thought
What were we talking about with regard to Obama recently?
Oh yes. Well, I mean, I think it was. Well, when we talk about the border and immigration, we'll
let's
touch
get into
on
it right
that.
now.
Yeah. So basically, I was quite baffled because I'll never forget this. When we lived in Richmond, Texas, for a little bit, we had this lady that would come in and clean, right? And her name was Maria. And one day she came in with a backpack. Okay. This is when Trump had just been elected the first time.
Yeah.
She comes in with a backpack and I go, Maria, what's that backpack for? She goes, oh, because in case La Migra comes and I get I get taken away. And I go, what do you mean?
We didn't have any idea.
Like, what do you mean? And she goes, oh yeah. So they're saying that, that they're going to just stop anybody and they're just going to deport you. And I need to have all my stuff with me. So, they told us all to carry a backpack. I go, Maria, you realize that Obama deported more illegals than any other president in American history, right? And you weren't deported. So you do realize this, right? She was like, what? She had no idea that
Right.
Obama did this.
Yep.
So as I was saying that, I thought, that Biden, Biden gets blamed for, everything that happened with the border and all of that. And I go, but guys, remember this. I don't think that Biden was in control of anything. I think he was kind of the figurehead. And I do believe that Obama and I don't know who else,
you're framing a puzzle here, which we need to make explicit. And that's this. Yeah. If Obama is the hidden hand that is guiding Biden,
Mm-hmm.
right, and has been running the country in his third term, as many people say, for the
Mm-hmm.
past 4 years before Trump, why did Obama change?
That's right. That's my point, is that I'm puzzled because he deported a lot of people.
Right.
And yet, this time around, he actually made it possible for them to come. The opposite.
Yeah, let's think of why he would do that, right? So first, could it be that in the first term, or first and second term, Obama didn't want to fight on this front? Obama thought, listen, first of all, Obama, not particularly a fan of Hispanics, probably had no interest. Notice that Obama had a lot more interest in the gay issue than he did in the race issue.
I wonder why. I'm sorry.
We know why.
I
mean, you don't have to wonder why. We know exactly why.
Okay.
But the point being, Obama was not in the inner city. The race issue was important for Obama because he did stoke racial division. Remember the whole incident with Henry Louis Gates?
Yeah.
So Obama did his best to twist the knife on that issue, so to speak. But on the other hand, he did more on the gay issue. But it could be that when Biden came in, Obama thought, listen, this was a narrow election. In fact, we had to steal it to get it. We need to change the demographics of the country. And so Obama does something that he had not earlier contemplated,
Mm-hmm.
namely, because like you say,
Open the floodgates.
And hope for some long-term benefits. Now, if he did that, which
Mm-hmm.
we think he probably did, it has backfired on him in the sense that I think that was the magic sword that gave Trump a decisive victory in the recent election. If Trump didn't have the border issue, I'm not saying he wouldn't have won, but it would have been a lot closer.
Yeah, well, the border issue and the criminals,
And
because we had, I think even in the past, even when Reagan gave 3 million, illegals amnesty and all of that, the illegals that were coming in were not that they weren't criminals, because by default, if you cross a border and it's illegal to cross a border, you broke the law that makes you a criminal, right? So these people were criminals in that sense.
But even so, there are degrees of criminality, right?
But they were people that wanted to work, wanted to raise a family, wanted a better standard of living, and were afraid of the cartels in Mexico because, as you know, they're violent, they're deadly, all those things. But this time, they unleashed the floodgates with all of the criminals from Central and South America. And the criminals, they were criminals there and they were criminals here, right? And so they murdered, they raped, all those things. And so I think when that started happening, Lincoln Riley, when that started happening, people started waking up and they were like, oh my goodness.
Debbie and I care about our health, and we've come across a remarkable device that's a total game changer. In fact, we use it every day. We've just integrated it into our normal workout. It's called Juvent Micro Impact Platform, and wait till you hear about it. It's based on the latest cutting-edge science. It uses micro impact frequency to promote joint health, improve bone density, boost circulation, even stimulate the production of stem cells in your body. It's crazy, right? But it works. All you have to do is stand on it for 10 minutes a day. That's it. It's going to make those crinks and stiffness and aches and pains vanish, and it can even add up to 5 years to your life. Wow. You got to learn about this new technology. It's not to be confused with some gimmicky vibration plates out there. Go to juvent.com/Dinesh to learn more. That's Juvent, JUVENT.com/Dinesh. They've got a great deal for you. $500 off, 10-year warranty, financing options, even a 6-week buyback promise because they believe in the product so much. Juvent can change your life. Check it out. Learn more. Go to juvent.com/Dinesh. That's Juvent, JUVENT.com/Dinesh. Numbers do not lie. The impact that Balance of Nature makes every single day is astounding. You can see the numbers for yourself on their website. Go to balanceofnature.com. Listen to a few stats concerning Balance of Nature's worldwide success. More than 1,000 success stories reported each month, hundreds of thousands of customers worldwide, millions of orders delivered each year, and billions, yes, billions of these. This is fruits and veggies in a capsule. It's fruit and veggie supplements consumed by people who have decided to start living better. There's only one number missing. That's you. Do what I did. Add yourself to these numbers. Start taking Balance of Nature's whole food supplements like so many others around the world. Here's another number that should get your attention, 35%. Use my discount code America. You get 35% off plus free shipping and a money-back guarantee. Here's the number to call, 800-246-8751. Again, it's 800-246-8751. Or go to balanceofnature.com. When you use discount code America, you get 35% off plus free shipping. MyPillow is excited to announce they're having the first ever mega sale. It's on overstock, it's on clearance, but it's also on brand new products. So for example, you can get over 50% off on the Seasons flannel sheets. The queen size just $59.98, the king size only $69.98. These sell out fast every year, so be sure to order now. You can also get 30% on the brand new My Crosses. These are designed in the likeness of the one that Mike Lindell has worn every day for the past 20 years. They come in men's and women's styles. They're made right here in the USA. You can get the 2025 6-piece My Towel sets, just $29.98. The initial quantities are low, so get them now before they go. And I don't want to forget to mention the best-selling standard MyPillow, just $14.98. Take advantage of the first ever mega sale. Call 800-876-0227. That's 800-876-0227, or go to mypillow.com. Make sure to use the promo code. It's DINESH, Dinesh. And one more thing, remember that Mike used to offer this deal, free shipping if you buy more than $75. Well, that ship has sailed because right now, for a limited time, every single order ships free. Why do you think they went? I mean, when you think about it, if you're a Democrat and you're looking for voters, why would you want criminals? Is it the case the Democrats just said, listen, open the gates, and then the other country said, let's disgorge our criminals? Or do you think the Democrats actually wanted criminals?
I don't think they actually wanted criminals, but I think that by default, by opening the floodgates,
they were willing to pay the price.
Yeah, because I know for a fact that in Venezuela, Maduro thought it was very, because a lot of the people that were in Venezuela that were at one point, they were Chavistas because they liked the handouts. And when the handouts stopped coming, they became criminals because they had to steal to eat and all those things, right? So these people were just bad people in their society. But they weren't necessarily gang members and criminals and thugs. But I think what happened is that when these people got word on the street that Biden was going to let everyone in, as long as you can cross over, if you can make it to Mexico, make it to the border, you're going to have a wonderful life, right? So people started coming. And then I think that Maduro got the idea, well, you know what? I'm just going to let these guys, why house these criminals here? They could just go along with these people and cross the border and be America's problem. I think he did it on purpose.
And it's not a new idea because we know, I think back to the Cuban boat people. Do you remember all this?
Right.
There was a lot of talk then that Castro and the Castro brothers were doing the same thing. They were opening up the prison. So this is sort of like
it's their MO.
It's a formula that they use.
Yeah.
What did you think? I thought it was fascinating, the conversation with Larry Taunton.
Oh my gosh, I'm still thinking about that today.
Yeah, because he was talking about the fact that, look, this is not simply a case where hordes of immigrants show up in Mexico, because he goes, how can they get there, right? They're passing through hostile countries that don't even want them. There has to be some elaborate mechanism.
Right.
Now, I thought that mechanism was supplied either by the cartels or just by left-wing international organizations.
Yeah, like maybe the Red Cross or something,
maybe the Red Cross, maybe some UN-affiliated organizations. Little did I know that the leash was being controlled by the U.S. government itself. But this is, I think, Larry's breakthrough, right? That USAID, that these U.S. government agencies, who is spreading the word on the street in Venezuela that if you come to America, you get a car, you get a... They are.
They were. Yeah.
So they create this flow. Then when the flow occurs, they pretend like, oh, there's horrible revolution going on in those societies. These people have nowhere to go. Not to say that there isn't poverty. There's, of course, poverty. But it's a whole different thing to say, I'm inviting someone to come and then pretending to be shocked when they show up.
Right. And again, they are complicit, if not outright, it's
they're
their fault. They're the orchestrators.
They're the conductors of this
That's right.
performance.
So I think that is another angle that we're going to find out soon, because this is why they're freaking out.
They want to shut down the Doge.
Because when they find out that USA Aid was actually orchestrating the illegals coming into this country by the millions, people are going to freak out. They're going to freak out. And the Democrats are to blame, obviously, because they were working in conjunction with these organizations. And I don't know what's in it for these organizations, quite frankly, except a lot of money.
Well, that's a very good reason. Like, look at a group like Catholic Charities, right? And it's very interesting because the Catholic Church has taken huge blows for all the the pedophile priests and all the cases. So it looked like for a while that the church might go bankrupt. right? But it hasn't gone bankrupt
Why?
because it's created a new business. And the new business is illegals. And giant amounts of money have been flowing into Catholic charities. And no wonder that, I hear the Pope say these things and I go, is this Pope on drugs? Or is the Pope just such a product of left-wing ideology? No. The Pope is the product of left-wing ideology. He was schooled in the Latin American socialist school, but I think even more important, he has realized that the bottom line for these Catholic organizations is massive funding via international NGOs and the government, and the U.S. government.
Did you hear about some of these churches suing the Trump administration because of the illegals?
I've heard about that, and not to mention, I just saw something about the Lutheran Church. They have a manual that is almost like an instruction to illegals for how to evade ICE. One of the things it says is, it says, first of all, unless they ask explicitly for your papers, you don't have to turn them over. But the more interesting thing is they say, don't carry your papers on you. Because if you do, they will see, oh, wait, this guy has a Venezuelan passport. This guy has a Mexican passport. But if you say, I don't have it. And this is the church. So think about it. You have these churches themselves are part of this criminal enterprise.
Yeah. And what in the Bible says that it's okay to break the law?
Nothing. And not to mention that you can't evoke something like, oh, well, they try all this kind of vague nonsense, like Jesus was a refugee. Wait a minute. Jesus was not a refugee. Jesus was, in fact, part of the Roman Empire. Right? And so when he went from here to there, it's not because he was a refugee. He remained inside the Roman Empire. He remained subject to its laws. Jesus himself said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. And it is Caesar's job to determine boundaries, establish who can come into a society or a nation.
Yeah.
But I think even more than that, we are dealing here with, talk about these. When you have this kind of collusion, it needs to be prosecuted.
Yeah.
It cannot be treated merely as, oh, these churches are misguided, they're misapplying the Bible. They are part of a massive coordinated law-breaking operation.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening is that for Americans, the full scope of the criminality of our government, but it's not, we think in the past of, here's the private sector, here's the government. No. In between the government and the private sector is the nonprofit sector. The nonprofit sector often deals with for-profit organizations. The money flows from the government to the NGOs, to the for-profit organizations, to the religious groups. So this is a giant circle.
An incestuous circle of corruption.
And collusive, incestuous circle. So the job for the DOJ, for Pam Bondi, is to break up this racket.
Yeah.
And a lot of people need to be charged, and a lot of people need to go to jail, because that will stop this practice in its tracks. And it will actually, so the Democrats basically are screaming because they don't want their criminal enterprise to be RICO busted.
Yeah.
Isn't that what's going on?
Yeah, it is what's going on. And the other thing too that I found comical is, we went to Mexico last weekend, and we took yoga.
We took yoga, yes.
I love it when we do yoga, because you're so cute when you're but anyway,
well, I'm not a yogi, despite the fact that since I'm from India, I should have.
You should be a yogi.
Yeah, my mom actually studied yoga, as you know.
Yeah,
and my mom would do all these breathing exercises and stuff, and in fact, my brother and sister and I would laugh because my mom would always be like, "Son, have you done your deep breathing, and this sort of thing?" And we were like, "Mom, are you serious?"
Mom, no.
Breathing is not something that needs to be
but it is very good. Yoga is very, very good for your body. But anyway,
especially now at our age,
right? And so anyway, so we were the only two in class, and when I say in class, it was amazing. It was overlooking the ocean. It was just beautiful. But anyway, the yoga instructor was this Mexican lady, and she said something really funny. She goes, "Oh, my son, he lives in San Francisco, And I told him to be very careful because they're telling us that if you look Mexican, they're going to deport you. And I was like, what?
Well, but you've heard this before. You have heard.
And I heard it later. That who was it? I don't even remember who else I heard it from. But it's like, okay, first of all, someone that told me that here in Texas, and I go, okay, oh yeah, Bonnie, and I go, okay, Bonnie, you do realize that Texas, the majority of Texans are Mexican American,
over 50%.
Yeah, and so what are they going to do? Stop the majority of Texans on the street,
every second car on the road?
It's like, no, that is so not true. But the Democrats are spreading this vicious lie to get people scared and to get Mexican Americans scared and to get any Latinos scared because this is how they operate.
Well, this is what they do. The Democrats are probably very alarmed that these border towns, which in the past voted heavily Democratic, and I think the Democrats thought, of all people, these border towns are going to be infuriated at Trump because they don't make distinctions between legal and illegal. To them, a Mexican is a Mexican and is welcome over here, and Trump is stopping that, so we're going to be against Trump. And then they realize, no, that the Rio Grande Valley, Laredo, all these border towns don't want illegals. And so the Democrats are probably like, we need to regroup. Mm-hmm. How do we stoke fear among these people once again and bring them back over to our side?
Exactly,
you think,
right.
Isn't that their political?
That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to scare the Hispanics that supported Trump. Now they want to scare them and say, yeah, see, you supported this guy and now he's going to deport you because you look Mexican. I mean, come on, man. I mean, really?
Now, you mentioned a moment ago this issue of the churches, and one of the debates that came up in the last couple of weeks is a bunch of progressive Christians were saying, well, let's look at the tale of the Good Samaritan.
Yeah,
because the Good Samaritan didn't just help the guy who was from his own community. The guy was a stranger. That's the very meaning of the parable. And what that means is that we as Christians should not make a distinction between ours and theirs, or between us and them, or between the native and the stranger. Christianity commands us, in a sense, to treat them equally. Now, this, I think, is wrong for two reasons. One, the Samaritan did not go around looking for people to help. The Samaritan didn't say, I live in Samaria, let me undertake a journey to Cairo or Tibet to find somebody to help. The Samaritan was walking down the road in his own community, and he sees this guy on the road. The guy is in front of him. Another way to put it is, we help the people who are in front of us. True, we have to recognize that we don't only help people who are like us, but we help people who have been put into our lives or in front of us. So that's the first point about the Samaritan. It is not an indiscriminate, help the world, we are the world. It is help the guy who is in front of you. The second thing about it, I think that's critical, is this Christian principle that it's called the order of love. And the order of love means you have to begin in a circle around yourself. It is your family, it is your cousins, it is your friends, it is your local community, and then by concentric circles, you extend outward to others as well. But there's a priority. Imagine if some guy goes, there are many needy people in the world, and therefore, for the next 6 weeks, I'm not going to feed my family. Now, it would be, first of all, downright deranged to say that. Mm-hmm. Even the progressive Christians who spout about the Good Samaritan look after their families first. Mm-hmm. You know, they make sure that their kids are well fed. They make sure their kids' names are in their will. They don't put some guy in Bhutan. I'm going to leave all my money to some guy in Bhutan, not my own kid. Mm-hmm. So their rhetoric is pompous, and it's intended to sort of bludgeon us into submission. They don't even live that way.
No.
But my point about the order of love is it creates a sense of moral priority. Mm-hmm. Not to say that we don't have a belief in universal brotherhood, but we don't just get to universal brotherhood straight out. We get to it slowly, and we get to it by moving from the smaller to
Wow.
the larger, or
Sorry
from the
about that.
small circle to the big circle.
Yeah, sorry
Right?
about that. Sneezed. No, that's true. And I think that that it's interesting how they defend this, but yet when it comes to abortion, some of these churches are like,
I mean, talk about
you
the
know what I
ultimate
mean?
stranger,
Yeah.
the person who is least protected, the
Yeah.
most vulnerable.
Because these churches that are pro immigration are not pro life.
Right.
By I think quite a bit. They're very much the, oh yes, it's a woman's choice, blah blah blah. So they're not really living like they say they're living. They're not really following God's commandments.
The other thing that's well worth mentioning is that these progressive Christians, or some of their organizations, are on the government payroll. This is another revelation. No surprise. It won't surprise you at all.
But isn't that a obvious conflict of interest? I mean,
well,
is that
what
even
they do,
legal?
Let's take Christianity Today, which is the evangelical magazine. They used to be actually pretty solid, and politically, I would say slightly right of center.
Mhm.
They've been taken over, usurped. The left-wingers seem to be running the show. And what they do is that they set up some sort of a Christianity International, Christianity Today International, and then they apply for government funding. It's all very nicely disguised in the form of global humanitarian awareness and blah, 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 and saving democracy. But essentially, it is a racket, right? And so the level of using the government to tap other people's pockets. Remember, the church has always been about a voluntary giving, right? We're going to pass
tithe.
Yeah, you do tithes and offerings. We pass around the plate. But I think these guys have figured out there's a better way
to get more money.
There's a better way to get more money. Yet let's use the government's power to put a gun to your head and extract money out of you and give some of it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Think of what Jesus would make of this.
Well, we know.
Well, I mean, I think Jesus would see this as the tax collector is now running the progressive church, right? The ultimate ripoff. The tax collector was despised because the tax collector was in fact the shakedown artist. Yeah, right. Yeah. He comes to a poor guy.
Isn't he along there with the prostitute? I mean, aren't they equivalent?
The Bible seems to equate them, right? They're sort of the disreputable elements of society. But in the progressive pantheon, they're glorified. See, notice that for example, the Democrats are very freaked out that the IRS might be audited. They want the IRS to audit us.
Yeah, but
if Elon Musk said, I'm going to audit the IRS, they freak out. Why? Because the IRS is the tax collector. It is the collection agency of the police state and of the welfare state and of the swamp. It feeds the swamp. So you can think of it this way. The IRS feeds the swamp, and Doge puts the swamp on a diet. So no surprise, because Jim Jordan tweeted this out. He goes, I don't understand how the liberals are all in favor of the IRS, but they're not in favor. They are in favor of the IRS audits, but they're not in favor of the Doge audits. And I'm like, actually, there's a very good explanation for that. The IRS audits are forms of extracting more money from citizens for the swamp. That's why they favor it.
Right.
Doge is a restriction on the swamp, and that's why they want to stop Doge.
That's why they hate it.
That's why they don't want that kind of audit. That kind of audit is the last kind of audit that they want at all.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the legal immigrant issue. Because...
Well, look at here. The illegal border crossings have plummeted 90% since Trump returned to the White House. 90. And
it's been, 3 weeks, 4
3
weeks?
3 weeks, 90%. I was listening to, I don't know, some news show the other day, and they had this Border Patrol guy talking, and boy, are they happy. I mean, it's like, it was, they asked them, what was the difference, from Biden to Trump, like overnight, right? He goes, night and day.
Night and day.
Night and day. It was like immediate. Immediate.
Well, I mean, they finally have a chance to do their jobs. Think
right.
how weird it is to be a
Yes.
carpenter and told
You can't use a hammer.
Yeah, you can't use a hammer. You can't make a chair or a table. You can be a carpenter, but your actual job is to smash things,
Yeah.
not to make them.
Right.
So these Border Patrol people must have been living in the Twilight Zone for 4 years,
They were.
right?
A lot. And you know what? I hate to say this, but I think a lot of them either had to quit. I even heard rumors of suicides. I heard
Just
that-
a sense
yeah,
of
just a se-
purposelessness.
yeah, you know, and
Well,
it's like,
you know, Biden
guys.
pretended, and this was Biden, but it was also the stance of their administration, there's nothing we can do. They
Oh,
acted
right.
like, you know what, we proposed a law and these Republicans are blocking the law. We can't, short of comprehensive immigration reform, there is nothing we can do. So notice how the Democrats use helplessness. In fact, it is an artificial helplessness, because as Trump has demonstrated, there's no
Manufactured.
actual helplessness. You
Mhm.
have if you seal the border, the laws are behind you. They support you. And you don't need new legislation to do any of that. So Trump has demonstrated what can be done.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, and now the other thing that I was going to talk about, obviously the Venezuelan illegal coming in. As you know, there were a like horde of Venezuelans that came in through the Darien jungle.
Right.
Some of the Venezuelan women didn't make it. You know, like Larry was speaking truth, because a lot of that I already knew because of my cousin. He said it was extremely dangerous to go through that jungle. You know, as not too many people know this, but in South America, Venezuela, Colombia, those countries, there are some really, I mean, these jungles are like, this is why, you know, people would always ask me when I was a kid, why do you always have to fly to America? Can't you drive, you know, from Venezuela through, you know, Central America and then up through Mexico? No, you cannot, because between the Panama Canal and you know, South America, there's this jungle, and you cannot drive any vehicle through there. I mean, you can't really even walk through there, but
Yeah.
if you do, you're taking your life into your own hands, because there's indigenous people that actually do not. They are the ones that like behead you or like shrink your head
I mean,
and eat you.
You're talking about
I mean,
talking about people untouched by modern civilization.
right. They don't know who you are. They don't even know that you're human. You know, like they have no idea. Like, and you have to walk through these areas. There's those people, and then of course there are the cartels that rape the women, take women hostage, all those things, right? So it's very, very dangerous. But a lot of these Venezuelans, and I told you that my cousin was like, oh, you know, but if they can make it all the way through Mexico, then once they get through the border, they're going to be home free, because they're going to get, you know, housing, they're going to get, you know, this, they're going to get that. And this was literally word on the street. This is what all the Venezuelans were hearing.
And I think this is the point that Larry made, which is how cruel this is, right? Because it's kind of like saying, here is a pit of fire. That's the jungle, right? But guess what? Try to run across.
Yeah.
Because if you manage to get across, there is like a pot of gold on the other side. So what you're doing is you're luring people into putting their lives in danger, their families in danger, you know, certainly their virtue in danger, all because you're offering them some mystical promise, which, by the way, you're not really going to deliver. People do not get free apartments and so on. It is true they might get put up in the Roosevelt Hotel for $500 a night, and so the government is providing these, or had been providing all these goodies for the illegals, but there's a huge casualty rate along the way.
That's right. That's right. And then there's that, right? The people that did that. And then there's another group of Venezuelans that got parole program. Okay. And I know some people, I'm not going to give names, but I know some people that went through the program and thinking that this program was, first of all, very on the up and up, right? If you can get somebody to sponsor you, you can come to America, you can stay here for 2 years. all of those things.
And you work, you support yourself.
Right. And you prove that you're a upstanding citizen, all those things. Well, it's been recalled, as you know.
Yep.
And some of these Venezuelans are not very happy with Trump because they're like, how in the, we were Trumpsters. How is it that, now Trump wants us to go back? They don't understand. What say you?
Well, what I say is this, and that is that it is what Biden did was he set a trap. And his trap was, I will use my executive power to create a program that will begin at the very end of my administration and go into Trump's administration. Trump can undo it, but if he undoes it, he will, in the course of undoing it, turn all these people against him, right? And so Biden offers a legal pathway. The Venezuelans, including the people straightforwardly go, yeah, we don't want to be illegal. This is a legal program. I mean, this is a case where you cannot blame the foreigner, because it's kind of like saying, I'll give you a visa if you want to come and visit Australia and live here for 6 months. And we go, sure, we'll take you up on that. And then when we get there, they cancel you and they go, no, you can't stay because there's you're like, I didn't realize this was sort of up for change. I thought I was coming on for 6 months. Now you're telling me to go back. So I kind of understand the frustration on the part of the guy who makes a handshake deal and is now told, no, it's the deal is off from the other end.
Right.
But the culprit here is Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, Biden ultimately made a false promise, which, by the way, this was not the true pathway to citizenship that should be offered to people, which is, you know what, we have a whole immigration process. Well, it's not without flaw.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, so let's say that somebody from Venezuela wants to come to America. Now, we're both like, I am an American citizen because my mother was an American citizen. She is from the Rio Grande Valley, 6 generations Texan, and she went to Venezuela to teach at an oil camp and met my father. They married. They had 2 kids. My mother was very smart in that once she had me, she went to the American consulate and declared me a citizen born abroad, a citizen via her, right? So that is how I had dual citizenship. And really, I could still have dual citizenship, but in Venezuela, because the U.S. does actually acknowledge dual citizenship, Venezuela does not. So I've been so vocal about the government in Venezuela. There is no way that I will ever go back to Venezuela as long as that regime is still there. There's no way, because I'll be arrested immediately. So that to say that I became an American citizen that way. So for me, it was it was not as difficult as for you.
Well, this is a key difference. You're really not, in that sense, an immigrant. I mean, if your mom is a U.S. citizen, there is a straight path for you to become a citizen via your
That's
mom. Right. And it's different than me, because I have
right.
no relatives who are U.S. citizens. I came alone. And I followed a very long and circuitous path, right? I went through multiple visas. So I started out with an exchange student visa, which allows you to come for exactly 1 year and not more. And you have to physically leave the country after that. So I did. So again, this is called playing by the rules. Then I got a student visa, which was tied to my admission to Dartmouth. And Dartmouth had to say, this is how this kid will support himself. He will have some grants and some loans, and he'll have some work study. And this is how he will not be a burden on the taxpayer. And I wasn't. Then I graduate, and there is something called a practical training visa, which you can get as an extension of your study, which allows you to work, but it's for a short period of time. During that time, you have to apply for a green card. Now, a green card is not citizenship. It is permission to live permanently and to work in the United States, but it's very hard to get a green card. It was very hard then, and it's even harder now.
Yeah.
And so you have to prove a bunch of things, which I had to do. I got an immigration lawyer. So this is called standing in line. And it took me, think about it. I graduated from Dartmouth in 1983. I got my green card, I think, in 85. And then it's a 5-year naturalization process. So I wasn't eligible for citizenship till 1990, and I became a citizen in 1991. Took the oath and all to become a citizen.
Right.
So that is the legal pathway. It's expensive. It is slow, but it is the right way to get in.
Yeah. So someone today, to get into America, they have to go through all those pathways. They have to go to school, and then they have to get
because that was my pathway.
What if somebody is like, let's say, a mechanical engineer, and he wants to get a job here? Does he go through, like, send in his resume and then hope that somebody calls him, and then he comes with what kind of a visa does he come with?
Well, here's the legal pathway. I mean, basically, you have to find the job first, because the employer sponsors you, and the job has to be in an area in which there is a shortage.
But does that person come as a visitor and then get a job? How does that work?
Well, you can apply from another country, send in your resume, and get a job that way. You don't have to physically be here. Or you can come as a tourist and go interview for the job. And then they're like, yeah, we'd like to hire you, but then you can't stay in the country. You've come as a tourist. You have to leave. But once they've decided to hire you, they can sponsor you. And if they sponsor you, they have to deal with the Labor Department and the Immigration Department, and they have to prove certain things. So, for example, let's just say you're a mechanical engineer. The Labor Department will look and see, do we need mechanical engineers? If they do, you have to then show that you have the right credentials, that this is a job where you can support yourself. So this is the process. And it is, as I say, it is frustrating. It is so frustrating that I had an immigration lawyer, but he would never call me back. So you call him, you leave a message, and when he feels like it, he calls you back. So I just remember a lot of frustration in the process. It is the worst run U.S. government agency. It makes the DMV look magnificent, like an Apple store.
So what's the answer?
Well, the answer is to reform and streamline our legal immigration process. We need to be very surgical, and if you look at places like Canada and Australia, they're very opportunistic. It's very much a Canada first or Australia first policy. They just look and see what they need. What does the country need? We're not starting out with the illegal or the legal applicant. We're starting out with, what do we need? It's kind of like you and I say, we need somebody to fix our yard. Oh, we need somebody to paint our house. So the country needs to say, this is what we need. This is a list of all the things that we need. Now, we put out the word that we're looking for applicants in these areas. And then you set up very efficient screening processes. This whole thing can be very streamlined and run very efficiently. The problem is that there's such a complex set of political motives that set up our process. And now it's riddled with all kinds of unfairness and even corruption, because I've mentioned to you chain immigration, all kinds of things. And there are powerful lobbies that fight for those things. So I don't see the political will right now in the legislature to be able to have any kind of comprehensive immigration reform. If Republicans had a 30 or 40 seat majority in the House and maybe a 7 or 8 seat majority in the Senate, it'll happen then, but not otherwise.
Wow, good discussion.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.